folks, Nancy Beauvair here with Agape and Next Steps. And in this video, we're going to follow up on our introductory video about inflammation. So in our last video, we just did a really brief overview about what inflammation is and some of the things that it is suspected to cause. So I'd like to delve into things a little bit deeper in this video. And we're going to discuss things that cause chronic inflammation. We're also going to cover some of the problems, health problems and other problems that can come up that are related to chronic inflammation. And finally, we're going to take a look at things that you can do that are within your power to try to manage chronic inflammation. So the first thing that we should cover off is what are the causes of chronic inflammation. So as we mentioned in the last video, there's acute inflammation and there's chronic inflammation. Acute inflammation is that immediate response when you've had an injury or you get an illness, something like that, and your body sends out all of its little warriors to go out there and go to battle and make sure that the body is protected. So that's a good thing. It helps with our immune response, and it ensures that our bodies are protected from these outside elements. But what happens when you have chronic inflammation is that reaction happens over and over and over, and it creates a lot of wear and tear, and eventually can even break down portions of the DNA, it's believed in some research articles, that cause some issues. So the things that cause chronic inflammation are something that created an acute reaction that was never dealt with. If you have a long-standing illness or a wound that never heals. Other causes are exposure to toxins, exposure to chemicals. There's also the belief, there's a lot of evidence from some research studies that show that obesity, too much alcohol, those kinds of things can have an impact on exposure to chronic inflammation. So now we know what some of the factors are that cause chronic inflammation. What kind of health-related issues come up if you are exposed to chronic inflammation? There's been a lot of research done over the course of especially the last few years, and we are finding that inflammation almost, in my opinion, from my research, almost is the root cause of almost everything that goes wrong in our bodies. It can cause cancers, it can cause mental health issues such as depression and anxiety, it can cause diabetes, it can cause dementia, it can cause any number of neurodegenerative diseases, and there are a ton of other things that can happen. Rheumatoid arthritis, for instance, and other kinds of arthritis, that the body's response mechanism goes in there to combat what's going on in that joint, and what happens is you end up with a lot of redness, a lot of soreness, a lot of pain and inflammation based on that. So really, we say that people die of cancer or heart disease, but in reality, at the root of all of this, it's a chronic immune response that our bodies are doing, that initially the biological response is to shield and protect our body, but I guess it's like too much of a good thing, and it just hammers away, and it creates these long-standing health issues that can cause people to become quite debilitated, or obviously in some cases it causes severe illness and eventual death. So what can we do? What's in our control to try to manage this chronic inflammation and protect ourselves? Well, I'm going to start with the bad news. The bad news is there's nothing that we can do to completely keep ourselves free from chronic inflammation. Just the process of our body's aging creates elements that are ripe for this chronic inflammation. Our portions of our bodies break down over time, and when our body responds to protect those areas, then we end up with that chronic inflammation. Now, the good news is that there are some things that are within our control. Obviously, if toxins, chemicals, pollutants are a factor in creating chronic inflammation, the more that we can reduce our exposure to those things, the better off we'll be. Now, granted, that's not always something that is extremely doable either, but watch for chemicals in your own home. What are you putting into the air? What are you using for cleaning products? Try to minimize your exposure to high numbers of pollution. You know, some people who live in highly polluted cities obviously are at a disadvantage as well. Contrasting that, people that live in the country, where there may be a lot of chemicals sprayed on crops, that it causes chemical exposure. So just really try to be aware of what is in your environment, what you're coming into contact with, and try to minimize that as much as possible. Something else that we can do is we can watch our diet. Leafy green vegetables, nuts, legumes, those types of food are shown to be anti-inflammatory, have anti-inflammatory properties that help reduce that chronic inflammation reaction that your body is having. There's also some evidence that certain spices like turmeric and capsaicin from cayenne pepper, that those can limit the effects of chronic inflammation, that they're anti-inflammatories. Finally, what you can do is, if you smoke, stop smoking. Only makes sense. Not only are you putting superheated air into your lungs, you're also introducing tons of toxins, which we already know, chemicals and toxins. So that's going to increase your exposure to those things. That's going to increase your risk of inflammation. You can also watch what you eat. Limit those highly processed foods, things like hot dogs and luncheon meats with a lot of preservatives in them. Try to eat wholesome, healthy meals as much as possible. Finally, what you can do as well is try to get some exercise. When you are moving and your body is healthy, it has a better ability to counteract these things that are coming into your sphere that can damage your body. So if you want to be healthy, and let's face it, a lot of these things that chronic inflammation causes also cause a lot of pain. Joint pain, hard to move. So if you can control to some degree the amount of chronic inflammation in your body, you're going to at least have a less painful aging process. So hopefully this has opened your eyes a little bit. It certainly opened my eyes when I started reading more and more about this chronic inflammation, and I realized just how it impacts every facet of our body. Just try to be aware of what you're putting into your body, what you're doing with your body, and what you're exposing your body to. So thanks very much, and we'll see you again with the next video. Bye for now.